David Martinez is a poor boy trying to survive in a dystopian future society. He lives in a city run by organized crime and an addiction to implanting mechanical parts. Thanks to his mother, who worked tirelessly for her son's education, David studied at one of the most prestigious academies in the city despite being poor. However, David cannot afford the same expensive equipment to watch classes with his classmates. David asks his friend Doc to help him modify his equipment to work just like his classmates. Unfortunately for David, the mod doesn't work, and he corrupts the class's system. The school calls David's mother to come and get him, and also give him an account of the damage to the system. While they're on their way home, they get caught up in a gang shootout, which ends in a car accident. As a result of the accident, David's mother dies, completely devastating her son. David, drowning in debt and being bullied by his classmates, decides to implant a military-grade modification that his mother had to improve his abilities. Before Doc installs a military-grade part on David, he warns him that there's a danger that David could lose control and become a cyber psychopath. However, David doesn't care and asks him to place the implant. The first thing that David does when he gets his upgrade is beating up the classmates who are bullying him, and then he goes home. Later that day, David gets in the subway when he realizes someone is stealing data chips from people, and thanks to his new powers, he catches the girl. Lucy, the chip thief, offers him to work with her in exchange for money. David agrees as he needs to pay off his debts, and the first job goes off without a hitch. But when they're spreading the money, David falls unconscious for no apparent reason and is taken by an ambulance with Lucy. In the ambulance, David and Lucy get attacked by the nurses to remove David's mod because it's expensive. They both escape thanks to Lucy, and they go with Doc. He tells David that they shouldn't use the implant more than 3 times a day because it could melt his brain. Lucy takes David to her house, where she tells him she's a netrunner. Moments before some mercenaries arrive looking for David. When the mercenaries find David, they all discuss how to remove the Sandevistan implant. However, David asks them for an opportunity to prove that he can be a cyberpunk like them. So Main, the gang leader, tells him that he'll give him a chance, but if he fails, he'll rip the Sandevistan from his corpse. A day passes, and Main contacts David to steal information from Arasaka's high management using the Sandevistan. The team manages to steal a chip for David and Lucy to get into the target's car. Once inside, Lucy steals the information they need, but the car locks and they can't get out. Main tells David to take the car to an old friend, and David drives while being chased by Arasaka's security. David uses his abilities, and he and Lucy make it safely to the drop-off point. One of Arasaka's soldiers follows them and is about to kill David, but Main arrives to save him. The work is a success, and Main accepts David as a band member. A few days later, David calls Main for a job since he's bored. Main offers him a simple job to keep him busy. When David finishes, Main introduces him to the team: Dorio, Falco, Kiwi, Rebecca, and Pilar. Main also teaches David how to drive, and they do more jobs while she's teaching him how to become a cyberpunk. David also tightens his friendship with Lucy. Little by little, David stops being a rookie, becoming more skilled in his new criminal life, even implanting mechanical lungs to run faster. David is quickly considered part of the group and is appreciated by all as part of the family. One day, when the group is going through a vacant lot, they see a guy publicly urinating, which annoys Pilar, and he decides to argue with him. However, the man turns out to be a cyber psychopath and shoots Pilar in the head, killing him on the spot. The group fights the cyber psychopaths and kills him, but Lucy gets injured in the battle. David decides to take Lucy to Doc for an examination and back home, where, after a deep talk, they end up kissing. After the first job against Arasaka, Tanaka, one of the company's executives, decides to tighten security. However, the gang manages to find a contract to get valuable information about the corporation. Jimmy Kurosaki, the informant, is the famous creator of Brain Dance, a dance game, and other custom cyber games that he sold to Arasaka. Once the gang finds out about Jimmy and Arasaka's connection, they plan to kidnap him. When they're about to catch him, Jimmy launches a shockwave at them, and he manages to take David away. Jimmy begins torturing David to turn him into a cyber psychopath and get footage for his games. At that moment, Lucy and Dorio arrive to save their friend. After they save David, Lucy and Dorio capture Jimmy, taking him to their lair and making a deal with him to get Tanaka. He accepts and agrees to a meeting with Tanaka to set a trap for him. The trap plan works and they manage to knock Tanaka out, though Jimmy dies in the process. The group takes Tanaka to his hideout and steals the information they need for Faraday, Main's boss. Thanks to the number of cybernetic parts that Main is implanted into his brain, he begins to become a cyber psychopath. While Kiwi's inside Tanaka's software, Main beats her up, and Kiwi ends up in the hospital. The plan gets delayed, and Dorio tells Lucy now that she has to do it. Lucy agrees only on one condition, that David is present. Doryo agrees, and Lucy prepares to dive into Tanaka's mind. Meanwhile, Main was getting worse and worse, but still conscious. Lucy goes into Tanaka's software to get the data, but everything gets complicated when he starts to wake up. His awakening causes a short circuit, killing Tanaka and alerting the security team, who head to the lair. Doryo tells Lucy and David to go to the car, and she and Main fight Tanaka's security team. After seeing that Doryo and Main are taking a long time, David goes to help them. However, Main unleashes his madness in the middle of the fight, becoming a cyber psychopath. Doryo dies defending Main, and this causes him to murder a bunch of guards and police, thus attracting the anti-cyber psychopath service. David arrives to see Main say goodbye to him, blowing up the lair, dying in the process and blowing up the anti-cyber psychopath forces with him. David survives the explosion and leaves with Lucy. Time passes and David gets more upgrades to improve his performance and becomes the new boss of the gang. David's fame leads him to Faraday, who offers him to continue getting information on Arasaka. David accepts in exchange for a good amount of money. When David gets home, where he now lives with Lucy, he keeps swimming on the web to avoid getting bored. Lucy tells David to go for a walk and get out of the routine a bit, and they end up on the outskirts of the city, where they sit and talk under the stars. Lucy tells David about how she became a netrunner in Arasaka. David tells him about his survival until meeting Main. Lucy also tells David that she's worried about him, and David tells her that he won't become a cyber psychopath. On the other hand, a netrunner from Arasaka is going through the files left behind by Tanaka. It turns out that Arasaka was looking for guinea pigs to use as Sandefistan, and one of those was David. However, he didn't find anything about David in the file since Lucy deleted them from the system. Lucy meets this Arasaka netrunner on the street and kills him to protect David. David begins to have symptoms of cyberpsychosis that leads him to have hallucinations and accidentally kill an innocent woman on the mission. On the other hand, Arasaka's top executives are hunting Faraday for wanting to sell information to another company. Faraday decides to meet the Arasaka's executive to finalize a deal and avoid getting killed. He had to capture Lucy to get the information on David that Arasaka needed. David continues to experience the symptoms of cyberpsychosis to the point of not sleeping at night. One day, he ends up passing out at home, and Lucy rushes to take him to Doc. Once they arrive with Doc, he tells David that he's already entering the point of no return of cyberpsychosis, and that he'll soon become a cyber psychopath. However, Doc gives him enough medicine to survive a few more days. As they leave, Lucy locates a target she was looking for days ago and goes after him. But this was a Faraday trap to capture her. Faraday and Kiwi kidnap Lucy and hide her in the apartment before taking her to Arasaka. Faraday gives David an assignment to steal some new military weaponry from Arasaka. However, this was a plan by the company to get David to try out this new exoskeleton. David accepts the job and steals the truck with Rebecca, Kiwi, and Falco. At the moment when Kiwi opens the truck, they see how a large army, Militech, approaches them. They came to kill David and steal the new exoskeleton. The gang gets inside the truck, and David decides to implant the exoskeleton even if it costs him his sanity. David gets contacted by Lucy, who tells him to use the exoskeleton. However, it was all a Faraday lie. Lucy manages to break free and tells David not to wear the exoskeleton, but Faraday recaptures her, causing David to explode in rage and nearly freak out. But before he loses control, Rebecca injects him with a drug, and David comes to his senses. Left with no other choice, David decides to use the exoskeleton to take down Militech's army and save Lucy. After taking out half of the Militech group, David, Rebecca, and Falco go to save Lucy. The group is on their way to Arasaka, and they get attacked along the way by different military groups. David annihilates them all, gradually succumbing to madness and begins to hallucinate more. As Arasaka's top executives see David coming their way, they call Aaron Smasher to stop David. Aaron's a military-grade cyborg capable of handling technological implants without getting corrupted. When David and the others arrive in Arasaka, they realize that Faraday is about to hand over Lucy. David kills half of Arasaka's soldiers and rescues Lucy, who gets him back to his senses for a moment. However, Aaron Smasher arrives, killing Rebecca, and sets out to finish David, who manages to hang on for a while. David saves Lucy, telling her to leave with Falco, buying time by attacking Aaron, dying in the process. In the end, Lucy escapes and finally fulfills her dream of traveling to the moon, just as she told David. And that was Cyberpunk Edgerunners Season 1 recap. If you enjoyed this recap, remember to hit that sub, click the like button, and comment down below to let me know what you think of the series. I'll see you on the next video.